So it's not the PNM or the Prime Minister did that. It's the pressure put on by the opposition led by Kamla Persad-Bissessar that invoked that is happening today for the public and the justice for the families. Now tonight I was going to talk about many things, but I listened to the press conference, the cabinet press conference by Stuart Young, and I was really going to leave Eugene Tier alone here tonight. But after the disgusting tone that Stuart Young said about our leader, our political leader, our opposition leader, the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, I want to tell Stuart Young, you touch Kamla, you touch all of us in the United National Congress. And we are not going to allow you to talk to our leader in the way you like to disrespect her. And we will not allow you to do that. So I want to say to Stuart Young, you touch Kamla, you touch David, you touch Barry, you touch Lakram, and you touch all of the United National Congress here. And we're not going to allow you to get away. I don't know if Eugene Tier is some god, because all of a sudden, everyone, especially Stuart Young, comes out batting for Eugene Tier. Where was Eugene Tier on Friday, the 25th of February, when that tragedy took place, and the divers and their family needed comfort? Where was Eugene Tier? Where was the energy chamber when these families were crying out for justice, crying out for comfort from Paria? Where was Eugene Tier and the energy chamber? They were nowhere around, nowhere. And all of a sudden, because Kamla Persad-Bissessar came out and talked about the lack of independence by Eugene Tier based on his history with his PNM government, all of a sudden, Eugene Tier is like the Pope. Now I could use the Pope because I'm Catholic. I could use the Pope, right? Now I know my colleague Jolene John is listening, so I send that for her. My deputy political leader, Senator the Honorable Jolene John. So all of a sudden, Eugene Tier is like this godly individual because the opposition came out and informed this country about issues about his independence, Eugene Tier. The energy chamber came out and defended Eugene Tier. Why? We asked the question, why? Who in the energy chamber appointed Eugene Tier to sit on that committee, that investigative committee that Stuart Young put together? Now that investigative committee, when originally Stuart Young announced it, was a 5-member team. There was no pick from the energy chamber. The 5 initial members, one was the permanent secretary for the energy and the energy ministry. The second individual would have been a lawyer. The third individual would have been a representative from BP. The fourth would have been Shell, and the fifth would have been an experienced subsea diver or individual. The energy chamber had no pick in that 5-member team. So we do not know what transpired with Stuart Young to all of a sudden did away with the permanent secretary from the energy Ministry of Energy and appointed the energy chamber to pick somebody. And who did they pick? Eugene Tier. Eugene Tier has a track record of being a PNM board appointed in ETEC back in 2005. And Eugene Tier, as part of that board hired Stuart Young and Michael Kwamina to be their attorneys. And that some issues with the management and decisions of investments that was done by that same ETEC board was challenged by the government led by the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, and that went to the Privy Court, and that board led by Ken Julian and Eugene Tier, etc., lost. Just like how Malcolm Jones lost. And what did this PNM government do? They exonerated them. They exonerated Eugene Tier, Ken Julian, and that whole ETEC fiasco about that investment. And the investment had to do with bamboo. And you heard Peppermouth Barry talk about bamboo. Okay, so that Eugene Tier, all of a sudden, the chamber is protecting Eugene Tier. Stuart Young is protecting Eugene Tier. Now I see the American chamber is protecting Eugene Tier. And I ask the question, have they given concern to those 4 divers that lost their lives and the families and the trauma that they are going through? They're only talking about Eugene Tier. Why? And we have that, the country must not be fooled or be deflected away. And the real issue is about getting justice for those families and those 4 divers that lost their lives in Paria. Now I want to talk about Newman George. I want to talk about Newman George. Now Newman George is the chairman of Paria. Newman George is the chairman. And his actions when this whole tragedy took place leaves much to be desired. The callousness of that board led by Newman George and the CEO Mustaq Mohammed and a gentleman by the name of Piper leaves much to be desired and leaves a bitter taste, not only in my mouth, but in the whole country, especially the families of those 4 divers. Now, on Sunday, on the, I think it's the 27th of February, at approximately 8 p.m., Paria had a press conference. And in that press conference, Newman George was the first individual to come up and speak. And literally, Newman George at 8 p.m. on Sunday, now remember the divers are in that pipe since Friday at 3 p.m. approximately. And I want to quote what Newman George said in that press conference. First individual as chairman of Paria. Based on advice, and I'm quoting, from all experts, the operation has now moved from rescue to recovery. I want to ask Newman George, at what stage from Friday 3 p.m. to Sunday 8 p.m., what rescue operation did Paria took place? What rescue operation that they did? From my information, Paria did nothing as far as trying to rescue those divers from the inside that pipe. It was the contracting company, LMCS, that tried to get Paria and the Coast Guard to listen to them. They had put together a rescue plan since Friday to try and save those divers. And they were met with red tape and bureaucracy all along the way. And the evidence will come out in that commission of inquiry. That is why we are happy. And I'm sure the families are happy for that commission of inquiry. And I want to ask Newman George, what role did he play? Now, I know Newman George is not an energy expert. He's not. I think he's a civil engineer, if my information is correct. Now, you don't have to be an energy expert, but he's head of Paria. And if it's one thing that Newman George could have done for those families, as you heard Angie Benjamin talked about the callousness, how they were treated in the car park in Pointe-a-Bear while waiting on some hope for their loved ones. Newman George, as the head of Paria, the minimum he could have done was ensure that those families in the car park were well taken care of. Paria did absolutely nothing to assist those families in that car park. It was good Samaritans like Angie Benjamin and others that bought food, that ensured that there were porta toilets, ensured that there was lighting in the car park, while those families waited outside that car park from the Friday the 25th to when Paria gave up hope and changed from a rescue situation to recovery. And that was told to the families on Sunday night at 8 p.m. by 3 individuals from Paria. Newman George, the chairman, Mustaq Mohammed, the CEO, and one Colin Piper. Those 3 individuals, when they were on television having a press conference at 8 p.m., the same time they were announcing the recovery situation or the recovery process, the families of those divers in the car park was listening to themselves on their Facebook or their phones, getting that communication. That is pure callousness. And I hope in that commission of inquiry, that the head of Paria role, because right now we understand that Stuart Young announced sometime in a press conference that the LMCS, the contracting company, no longer is allowed to work for Paria because they're off, whatever jobs they might have had elsewhere inside of Paria. But the board of directors, led by Newman George, the CEO, Mustaq Mohammed, and Piper, are still going about their business as usual inside of Paria. We are calling on their suspension immediately. The opposition is calling on their suspension immediately so that they cannot tamper with the information or of that whole investigation that is taking place. And I'm asking that at the same time I have called as the chief whip. I sit on the energy committee led by with the opposition leader. We have filed a matter inside the energy committee that we also have an investigation out of parliament to get some answers on behalf of the family. So ladies and gentlemen, I mean, we have said enough about the divers, and I know our prayers are with the divers and their family at this point in time. I know the last diver, his funeral was this afternoon, and our prayers are with the families at this point in time. Before I close, I want to get on one last item. And Sean mentioned it. I have been calling out as the shadow energy minister when fuel prices will go up. If there's one thing that this government is going to do is increase fuel prices, and they're going to use it as another deflection away from issues that are happening in this country. And I want you all to remember and listen to, before I get into it, what the Prime Minister said when they were shutting down Petrotrin. Go ahead, Claus.
But I want to talk to the mothers, the children, the neighbors, and all those who are attached to the Petrotrin business to make one clear statement to you first and foremost. The government is not closing down Petrotrin. And in case you were just opening your fridge and you didn't hear that when you closed the door, let me repeat it. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is not closing down Petrotrin.
Mr. Espinay, just to clarify.
And what you heard there was Espinay came after, and he said, all going home. And what happened, and we must never forget that. We must never forget what the Prime Minister said. We're not closing down Petrotrin. Today, Petrotrin is shut down. Today, the refinery is closed up. And that is why we are paying the price at the fuel pump. We have no more refinery. We do not produce our own fuel for our country. We don't have fuel security anymore. We have to import fuel at international prices for our consumers, our motorists, our traveling public. And when you listen to Rowley the other night in the conversation, he mentioned some prices, and I just want to repeat to you all. He mentioned that the premium gas would go from $5.75 a liter to $7.58. That's 31.8% increase. Super, which all of us use, I call it the red handle at the pump because the premium is the white handle. The red handle super. Presently we pay $4.97 a liter. According to Rowley, it can go to $7.46. That's a 50% increase. And diesel that Archie uses with his van, and so many of us, diesel presently is $3.71 a liter. It will go to $6.58. A 77% increase in fuel for diesel. So all of us who like to drive 4x4, diesel, I want to let you know, Rowley has given notice to this country. Very shortly, diesel will increase by at least 77%. And why that is so is because they have destroyed Petrotrin. They have shut down Petrotrin. They have shut down our refinery. And up to the day, they cannot say who is going to buy that refinery. I listened to Stuart Young today in a cabinet thing. He talked about there were 4 bidders and they have to go back out and get some more. It's just la-di-la-di-la-di-la. I mean, they fooled OWTU. OWTU was bought into that and felt somehow Rowley and Stuart Young was going to give them the refinery. Well, they're still waiting on the refinery. And the people of this country are suffering. We are suffering and we pay any price at the pump. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for coming out in your numbers here tonight. It feels so good. It feels so good to be back out in the open. It is about 2 years that we have not been together. I want to thank you for coming out. I want to thank my colleagues here tonight. I want to thank the TTPS who is here tonight giving us security. I want to thank you officers for keeping us safe. I want to thank my hard-working staff. I want to thank you, my lovely people of Pointe-a-Pierre, for listening and adhering to the COVID protocols here tonight. We are a disciplined people. UNC are disciplined. We are not like PNM. And whenever that bell is called, I will tell you, Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa will return as the next Prime Minister of this country. Long live the United National Congress. Long live you, the beautiful people of Pointe-a-Pierre. Long live my colleagues. And as I say, to the PNM, you touch one, you touch all of us here tonight. So thank you. God bless.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee. Brothers and sisters, we thank you very much for joining us tonight. As you leave here tonight, remember one thing. The party that cares for you is the United National Congress. In Kamla Prasad Bisesa, you have a leader that loves you. In Kamla Prasad Bisesa, you have a leader that will fight for you. And in Kamla Prasad Bisesa, you have your next Prime Minister. So we thank you tonight. We thank Mr. Rajesh for allowing us to use his compound. We thank the TTPS. We thank the TTPS for joining us. And as the head table is now telling me, there's doubles in front for everyone. So please go and collect your doubles. We thank Mr. Archie for carrying the light tonight. We thank the Tropical Fire Tasker Group and Krish Sound System, as well as DJ Papi. So thank you all very much. Reach home safely.